Greetings, mortals. Welcome to another session of the Infernal Court in Musical Hell. I'm Diva, your judge, jury, executioner, and I don't like Grease. There, I said it. Yeah, the score is pretty good, but the story just twists my tail the wrong way. It's nothing but a bunch of 1950s teenagers doing various 1950s activities until one of them decides she needs to tart herself up to get the boy she likes, which is sexist and degrading and doesn't even work because he'll just have his way with her and then dump her for some second circle tramp with perfectly manicured hooves and huge horns that you know are fake and...
Excuse me, this is irrelevant, isn't it?
Right, sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, Grease. Not my thing. It is, however, one of the highest-grossing movie musicals of all time, so I've made my peace with the fact that I'm in the minority on this particular subject. The sequel, on the other hand, well, everyone agrees that's a piece of crap. Let's face it, 99.666% of sequels exist entirely for one reason: the original movie made a shit ton of money, and Grease 2 is no exception. It was originally intended to be the frontal assault in an entire Grease franchise, consisting of 4 movies and a television series. The movie's dismal failure prevented that from happening, so that's 1 point in its favor at least. But it's not enough to protect it. Let's examine the case of Grease 2. Welcome back to Rydell High, where it's now 1961, a fact established by a little bit of, oh boy, are we ever in the early 60s dialogue.
If the Russians can put a man in space, just imagine what our young American minds can do at Rydell.
There's a lot of that going on throughout the movie, making for sin number 1. The script for Grease 2 was kind of written on the fly, and it shows. There are characters with no discernible function, subplots that don't really pay off, but this is where I think the laziness of Ken Finkelman's writing really stands out. He doesn't so much establish the setting as name-check various cultural touchstones from the era. Jackie Kennedy, Marilyn Monroe, Big Bouffant hairstyles, Cold War paranoia, you get the picture. This wouldn't be so bad if he played the references for laughs or something, but for the most part he doesn't do anything with it. Except for one scene where one of the secondary characters tries to use the threat of nuclear war to get laid.
For if we give our very best, I know that we will more than pass the test.
What are you doing, Louis? Get off of me!
This could very well be the most patriotic sexual assault ever. And here comes the newest crop of 20-something Rydell students, who are all dancing enthusiastically despite the fact that the first song, Back to School Again, is all about what a drag it is to have to march back into the halls of academia and slave away for the man.
Geometry and history is just a pain. Biology and chemistry destroys my brain.
Didn't anyone notice the song's message and the visuals don't really match up? It's kind of like starting The Nightmare Before Christmas like this. Among the student body is a new batch of T-Birds who are into motorcycles instead of hot rods this time, and the next generation of Pink Ladies, headed by Michelle Pfeiffer as Stephanie. New to the school is Michael Carrington, a cousin of Sandy from the original Grease. Michael is an exchange student from England with a posh accent. He's kind of a nerdy goody two-shoes, and he's taken with Stephanie despite not being a part of her social cast, and sin number 2, didn't we see all this in the first movie? Most sequels are inherently unimaginative, but worst of all are the ones that just rehash the story of the original. Grease 2 is the exact same concept as Grease 1 with the genders reversed. You have the clique of cool kids, the outsider who wants to fit in with the cool kids to be with the one they love, the assorted subplots to give the secondary cool kids something to do, several references to rampant teenage hormones, and a random group of thugs who show up to give the cool kids somebody to fight with. All of these things were done a lot better by the first movie, and I didn't even like the first movie all that much, so that makes this one even harder to sit through. Stephanie used to date head T-Bird Johnny, but she's broken up with him for reasons that will make no sense later. Michael is smitten with her because she says a few kind words to him in the hallway, despite the fact that she's a pink lady and can therefore only date T-Birds. Yes, it's a stupid rule, but it's all we've got for conflict. Okay, there's also the random rival gang, but the T-Birds aren't settling with them right now because they're... bowling. Look, I just judge them. I don't explain them. The bowling alley is really just a set piece for sin number 3, Score Tonight. I don't even know where to begin with this number. It's pointless. It has awful choreography with dancers randomly spinning and waving around obviously fake bowling balls. It has a chorus that's the equivalent of having 1,000 needles puncturing your skull.
We're gonna score tonight. We're gonna score tonight.
Maybe I should recommend that as a torture for the 9th Bolgia. Save them some materials costs. The lyrics are obviously just a string of sexual euphemisms, but this isn't the most innuendo-heavy song in the score, so we'll let that pass for now. Despite her repeated insistence that it's over, Johnny still keeps trying to put the moves on Stephanie, probably because he tends to approach girls as a heating unit for a vag. Stephanie proves her newfound independence by kissing the first guy who walks through the door, who happens to be Michael. This gives Michael the courage to ask her out during auditions for the school talent show, but she explains he's not her type.
I want a devil that's skin tight leather. He's gonna be wild as the wind. And when fine nights, I'll be holding on tight to a cool rider.
Yes, it appears the only way to Stephanie's heart is to be a leather-wearing bad boy on a motorcycle. You know, just like the guy she broke up with. Stephanie's conflicting motivations, sin number 4. She veers between looking down her nose at Johnny and his teen delinquent behavior,
When are you guys gonna grow up?
and turning down Michael because he's not a teen delinquent.
How about a hamburger later?
Oh, I'm busy.
How about tomorrow?
Busy?
I could easily believe Stephanie might not be as mature and sophisticated as she wants to be. She is a teenager after all. But I don't think the movie knows whether or not she's really smarter and more grounded than the rest of her friends, or if she only thinks she is. She just behaves in whatever way is most convenient for the script at the moment. Michael decides that if Stephanie wants a cool biker dude, then a cool biker dude he'll become. Wow, at least Olivia Newton-John waited until the end of the movie to lose her self-respect. He does this by doing the T-Birds' homework assignments for cash, basically becoming a 1960s version of FreshEssays.com. And the school year trudges on with talent show rehearsals, dead-end romantic subplots, and... oh yeah, sin number 5. This is the single dumbest song about sex I have ever heard. And remember, I've heard this.
And I touched you. And I felt you.
There is a lot of humor potential in the idea of a nervous teacher trying to explain the facts of life to a bunch of kids who've been, well, doing a little extracurricular study on the subject, but the song misses all of it. The patter verses are clumsy instead of clever.
Is it possible the female member of some sex on a couch could get this guy all hot and she never even knew it?
And there's an attempt at the same sort of gender gap dynamic that the original had with Summer Nights, but it doesn't pay off as well. While Summer Nights uses a he said she said motif to contrast two different perspectives on a summer romance, reproduction just boils down to girls are reluctant to have sex while boys can't think of anything else. It's yet another half-hearted swipe at recapturing what made the first movie so popular.
Yep. Follow me.
Oh look, the plot's back on. Michael's shady academic dealings finally pay off, and he buys himself a second-hand motorcycle that he fixes, restores, and learns to ride like a pro in the space of a time-passing montage. And so the next time the random thugs come by the bowling alley spoiling for a fight, a mysterious stranger rides in to thwart the villains by... just driving around them.
He's looking for a rumble and some heads are gonna bust.
It's like an entire chorus of Pierce Brosnans. The mystery guy is obviously Michael. Well, obvious to us because we have IQs above double digits. The people in the movie take a little while longer because they're required by plot to be impossibly stupid. And nobody's stupider than Stephanie, who's instantly taken with Mr. Tall, Dark, and Leather-clad while completely failing to recognize the jawline of the guy who's been trailing her the entire movie.
It really doesn't matter that I haven't seen his face.
What do you mean you haven't seen his face? It's 90% visible! Lois Lane wouldn't be fooled by that costume switch. This part is idiotic, and it only gets more idiotic as Stephanie spends huge amounts of time with both Michael and his secret identity and fails to make the connection, and it's sin number 6. Things play out the way you'd expect. Michael romances Stephanie in his cool writer persona, and to his credit he does hide one of his more obvious tells by adopting a painfully bad American accent.
I'm the one that can't stop shivering now.
But wouldn't you know it, just as he's on the verge of revealing his secret identity, the T-Birds show up and he chickens out, but promises to see Stephanie at the talent show later that week. Since Stephanie apparently never told him about the talent show, this is an obvious clue that her secret admirer is someone she knows, but we're still 45 minutes from the end, so that bulb remains frightfully dim for the moment. And Johnny goes all green-eyed monster over Stephanie and tries to bully her into leaving the Pink Ladies for wanting to date someone else, even as he pursues Paulette the Marilyn Monroe wannabe on the side. I'm sorry, but why are Johnny and the T-Birds not the bad guys in this movie? The original T-Birds could be jerks, but you got the impression that a lot of that was just bravado to mask their adolescent insecurity. These guys are just creeps. Eventually, Stephanie has problems in English, which allows Michael to finally get his foot in the door by offering to rewrite her last essay. Because, hey, academic fraud has gotten him everything he wanted so far. So now Stephanie starts making a connection with Michael while fantasizing over his secret identity, a situation that she knows is ridiculous but can't seem to help herself with.
And then the crazy thing is that I've seen him twice now. And both times he's wearing these goggles. I don't even know who he is.
Mr. Right.
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 Don't you think that's kind of weird?
And Michael goes into the does she love me for myself or my flashy persona crisis, resulting in sin number 7, charades. This was clearly intended to be the hopelessly devoted to you of the movie, but it's not up to the challenge. The melody line is boring and has this distracting echo effect, and Maxwell Caulfield sounds under the pitch when he sings it. Setting it in the middle of a busy cafeteria doesn't help either. Instead of contrasting Michael's loneliness with the bustle around him, the noise and activity drown out the song. Finally, we arrive at the evening of the talent show with Stephanie waiting for her cool writer to appear, which he does, but he can't stay to chat because the T-Birds are in hot pursuit. And if you thought the plot convolutions were stupid before, you ain't seen nothing yet. The chase goes to Dead Man's Curve. No, really, there's a sign for it and everything, where the tracks indicate Michael drove off into the ravine below. The T-Birds are remarkably nonplussed about their role in this apparent demise.
It ain't our fault the guy don't slow up.
Yeah, we chased him to his doom, but we're blameless. Of course, Michael's not really dead, and there's no evidence of an actual crash or any report of it later, but everyone thinks it happened anyway because, again, plot-induced stupidity. And Stephanie feels all heartbroken and blames herself for the tragedy because of reasons. Even stupider is the implication of what really happened.
Look, you saw him. He jumped over a cop car at the Bolorama, and that was a really big jump. He'll show up. I know it. I just know it.
So wait, he jumped over the ravine? This guy who couldn't sit upright on a bike less than 6 months ago is evil fucking Knievel all of a sudden? Yep, there went my suspension of disbelief right there. Despite all this, the talent show goes on. And yes, it is exactly as painful as you would imagine.
If your sweetheart sends a letter.
There's a little bit of backstage antics. The T-Birds jump their competition to improve their chances of winning. Paulette finally gets around to telling Johnny off for being an ass, so good on her. But the real drama is happening on stage. During her extremely bad production number with the Pink Ladies, Stephanie goes into this big flashback freakout and starts to really get off script.
Oh, I just can't believe you left me here alone. How in this world can I make it on my own?
And right out of nowhere, we get sin number 8. There are several things that bother me about this whole sequence. The first is that it's yet another obvious ripoff of the original movie, in this case the beauty school dropout scene. The second is the song, Love Will Turn Back the Hands of Time. Like Charades, this song has a lot more to do with the 80s than the early 60s, with its cheesy echo effect and light rock drums. And then finally, after Stephanie has been told by her dream lover that he will live on in her and her heart will go on and yada yada yada, this happens. Wait, so was she actually singing that? I'm all for diegetic music, but how exactly did that work? Did she just randomly burst into this 80s pop ballad entirely on the spot? And what was going on during Michael's part of the whole fantasy sequence?
Stephanie, please don't cry.
Oh, it all seems so unfair. Just when I found you, I lost you.
Who is she talking to, honey? I don't know, maybe it's some kind of performance art. Problem is, I don't think Stephanie's relationship with either version of Michael has been developed well enough to make her grief seem plausible, even allowing for teenage overreacting. So this part where she imagines his spirit consoling her falls flat. All this ends with Johnny and Stephanie tying for first place in the talent show. I guess the rest of the people they performed with can go screw themselves, which somehow makes them king and queen of the school's end-of-year luau. Yeah, you can just smell the desperation to tie up the loose ends at this point. But that doesn't matter because the important thing is... luau! And we all know what that means. Bad Hawaiian rock. The party lasts long into the night and feels that way too. Things pick up a little when the random biker gang shows up to cause some random violence. You'll never guess who rides in to stop them.
What a twist!
The T-Birds welcome Michael as one of their own, which I guess is supposed to make it okay that they've been assholes the entire movie. But it fulfills the bogus requirement to dating Stephanie, which won't matter anyway since they'll be graduating in a few days. And if I were Michael, I would be wondering if Stephanie was really worth all this trouble, since it's still even odds whether or not she likes him or the bike more. But he did accomplish what he set out to do, so yay for him, I guess. Michael and Stephanie are together, the secondary T-Birds and Pink Ladies are together, which means it's grand finale time. Well, not so much grand as ponderous and forgettable, but you get the idea. And the movie closes with yearbook-style credits, killing any chance it had of showing a single shred of originality. Even though I didn't like Grease, I get why other people do. It's got good songs, and behind the nostalgia, there's a credible warts-and-all picture of adolescence. Grease 2 doesn't even have that much to recommend it. The score has several awful moments, the characters don't have any complexity to offset their jerk-ass behavior, and the whole thing is just an attempt to capture the success of the original by mimicking it as much as possible. There are worse things that a movie could do, but not many, so the Court of Musical Hell orders the following punishments. For the awful attempt at sexual humor that is reproduction, we condemn Dennis Lind to be stuck in a bad health education film. For being so completely thick-headed that she was fooled by a pair of goggles, we condemn the character of Stephanie to attend a facial recognition class with the casts of Sailor Moon and Jekyll and Hyde. Finally, for this repeat of something that was a pain to endure the first time around, we condemn the producers to relive their entire adolescence. So let it be recorded. This session of the Infernal Court in Musical Hell is now adjourned. I'm glad that's over. Musical sequels are the worst. I don't know what I'd do if I had to sit through jumping Beelzebub on a pogo stick.